Hello everyone and welcome. A very good evening to you all. My name is Alex Selwood. I am the Partnerships Director at GFT. I'm sure not all of you would have heard about GFT before, so I will say a few words a little bit later on. We have a jam-packed agenda for you tonight of really, really great content, but even better speakers. So I'm sure you're all looking forward to that.
Very much. Okay, so I'm going to be the tough guy, and I'm going to tell you that you've all got work to do, right? So we've got some fantastic technology that's going to be talked about today and this evening, and it's going to showcase all the possibilities that we can create with new technical innovation. But I think everybody's pretty aware that unless you work at OpenAI or Anthropic, this, or Google maybe, this chart isn't going to work for us, right? We're not just simply going to grab an LLM, drop it on the table and say, wow, all the problems of the world are solved and we can now go off and roll in the money. That just isn't going to happen. The reality is we're going to have to go through a process to move these scientific artifacts, so the result of some science which has been going on and is still going on, into maturity, a mature implementation into a system that can actually work. And this is going to have to go two ways. We're going to have to go through a technology maturation program, and we're going to hear some of the presentations from people like Palo Alto today, where we'll see some of that happening. We'll hear about the work we've been doing on our banking assistant, where we looked at what it would take to actually get this technology into a useful application or an interesting application for retail banking. So there's all that work to do, but on the other hand, the people in the audience, you folks, and me as well, we're going to have to go the other direction from the business need through the process change, which is going to allow us to meet that need, and the adoption, drive that adoption in our user communities, but also in our technical communities, right? And if we don't do that, we're going to get something very different from what we might have got. And that's basically the message of this talk. And that might be fine, or it might be very bad. Okay? So just to go through this again, I want to emphasize LLMs are a scientific discovery. Basically, it was a big surprise to us. I've been working on this for years and years. A number of people in this room have been working on this for years and years. Nobody expected scaling to work like it did. No one, right? And I think even the OpenAI guys didn't. I think they were mucking around. They happened to get more money than they knew what to do with. And then they got something they didn't really expect, and they followed up on it, right? But nobody was imagining that very large language models would behave in the way they do, because we thought different things about language and how language worked, to be honest, and we were wrong. And that's science, right? You do an experiment, you see a result, somebody else does it again, and it's the same result. Well, you have to agree the unexpected result is the truth. We have to refit our theories to fit the results, not the other way around. Well, there we are. That's how we got to it. AI itself is a technology, right? So this is a development on top of a scientific discovery. ChatGPT isn't an LLM, right? It just isn't. There's an LLM buried in a system. You've got a login, you've got a web page, you've got a way of transforming the text you type in into tokens that the thing can understand, which are essentially floating point numbers. And you push it into the LLM. Floating point numbers come out. You have to make choices about which ones you're going to pick, which people don't tell you, but there's all sorts of possibilities about what output you're going to pick. And then you pick that output and translate the tokens, translate the numbers back into tokens, and then you can pump it out through your web interface to the user, right? There's a system there, and embedded in it is the LLM. That's a very primitive type of system. But all the AI that we're actually going to use is going to be in the form of a technology, not in the form of the LLM by itself. And that's going to be very important to get us anywhere.
So today we're going to talk about AI impact. So this is a tool built within GFT. It's a global initiative that we all worked on together. And really what it is, we've started to look at the SDLC, right? So we started to look at the processes that you have, not just the DevOps, but also the processes you have within Agile. How can we speed that up? You know, I mean, I worked in that, and when you'd see a whole team of people, of developers sitting in front or going into an elaboration session, you think, wow, that's 8-9 developers sitting with a scrum master and an architect and a product owner, and you're trying to elaborate out these stories. That's a lot of time, a lot of money. So how can we increase that? How can we improve that, make that better, faster, efficient, and not just that, but at the same time, improve the quality of what we're doing? And then you realize if you take a step back, you do PI planning. And that happens like maybe once a quarter, and you go and talk to all the people and capture all the requirements and everything, right? So I thought, well, if you can do that, capture your epics, capture all the information, and do it with a bit of prompting as well, right? So start really refining those epics. You can then feed that into an LLM. And if you've fed in your architectures, you feed in your standards, your security standards, your regulations, your controls, you can then start to build stories. You can start to develop stories, or even generate stories that are aligned to your organization. So when we started to see that happen, we tested this out, and we'd realize it's not perfect, but it gets you 85%, 90% there. So that means you can go into these sessions and really quickly start to elaborate them to the level that you want them to. And then we thought, okay, well, now we can do that. What about story points? And that's quite a complex one here, because story points is about understanding the ecosystem you're in. But then if you've got LLMs helping you resolve things, your story points might go down even more. So we thought, well, that's a good measure to look at maybe. But then we thought, okay, now we can do that. We can generate our tasks. Once we've got our tasks, we can then complement that with Gemini, for example, and then we can start to generate code. But not just generate code. We want to inject quality, right? One of the things you see in a lot of DevOps is quality is done at the end, right? Well, feature testing is done once a developer's gone and done their development. Well, we want our developers using unit testing, TDD, BDD, these kind of principles and concepts. So you can use LLMs to actually generate your tests. And you can say, here's my acceptance criteria. We're going to feed that into an LLM, and then hopefully we'll get some Gherkin language tests, feature tests coming out. Now we can write our code against those tests, or even generate our code against those tests, so that we can say we're done. So it really accelerates. This all starts to really accelerate. You then start to think about, well, we want to do code reviews. We want to do code fixing if there's bugs that are coming in that we're not sure about. How can we do all of that? So AI Impact really helps us. We started to develop that. Proof really for us was that we said, well, it's great talking about all this stuff, but we've got to eat our own dog food, right? If we're going to develop this tool, let's use this tool to develop the tool itself. And that's what we've been doing. So we've got teams in Brazil, in Italy, Germany, UK, and we all use this tool to actually develop the tool itself. Favorite part? All developers love this, right? Documentation. Who doesn't love a bit of documentation? It's the part that a lot of developers find and spend a lot of time on, because it's never done. It's never accurate. It's never complete. But you can have a standard template and feed that in. Looking at the code, the LLM will look at the code and generate the flow. You can then say, what are the dependencies and all this, and it will build your documentation aligned to that. Testing, like we've already talked about, unit tests, feature test, all of these kind of tests, shifting your testing to the left so that you're injecting quality right at the beginning, not just at the end. So you've got more confidence in your code, in your product, before it gets into even not dev, but when it gets into production or pre-prod. So these are all the feedback loops, and these are the various components of AI Impact. Now, this is a live demo. I've done my prayers, and if you techies out there, you know what I mean, right? So we're hoping this is going to work. Fingers crossed. Over to you, Pav.
Thank you, Gorbin. So as Gorbin said, we do like to live life on the edge. We are doing a live demo today. So we're not going to go through all the features of AI Impact, as I think we'd be here for quite a while if I did. So what I'm going to do, we're going to take you through the story creation, some code testing, generate some documentation, and then move on to the favorite part, as Gorbin said, is the documentation as well. So let's go into story creation. So again, as Gorbin alluded to, if you're in your PI planning sessions, you're going to have a sizable team around you, and it's going to take a number of days to really tease out the information that you really want for the upcoming sprints and for the project for success and for completion. Now with AI Impact, what we can do here, we can write all the details we need within that we want captured within the sprint and the work that we need to be completed. Now, just a few of the radio buttons here. We're able to select certain projects that we're aligned to. So again, what level do we want to start creating stories, epics, and tasks for? We've got that here. And again, so we can have tailored bespoke prompts to your organizations. So whatever you have in your specific to your business unit, in your areas, you can really target that with the select prompts as well. And again, with the LLMs, we're going to use Gemini, of course. You can then select the certain LLMs that you have. Again, we can always use cloud hosted or on-prem hosted as well. So what I'm going to do in the interest of time here is a mock use case for a bank account using microservices that I'd spun up a little bit earlier. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through and actually look at what it's done. So here we have various epics that it's created for us, user stories and features. What I can do on the fly is, so one of the epics that we have here, if I go into that, so again, we've got a nice description. This gives us detailed context, descriptions, comments, and notes. Now, again, we're looking at we can actually look at the data that you have within your previous sprints and within your environments as well, and really look to couple up that environment expertise with AI impact to get the most value and the most business value out of what we're actually producing here. So again, with the epic here, I can actually then create some features. So what it's doing behind the scenes is going to our prompting, our prompt engineered prompts that we have. It's also coupling it with the descriptions that we've given it and the sort of domain expertise that we have. So what it's going to do is then going to create our tasks for us. And again, it does take a little bit of time, but again, if we're looking at it in terms of enhancements and cadence increases, if you're looking at bigger sort of PI planning sessions, the sort of 30 seconds to a minute here is really valuable in enhancing that cadence and saving that time. So we'll let that run for a moment, and this is going to be the proof in the pudding.
That's where you need the elevator music, really.
Yeah. Can you see it with the lights, Colton? So features created successfully. So again, if we go into each of these, again, we have a description as well. We can then create user stories, but again, for the sake of time, I won't do that right now. So again, so what we can really do is, as Gorbin said, we can start looking at it in terms of our TDD and BDD development as well. So our user story, our acceptance criteria, if it is formatted in the correct ways that you want to start ingesting and injecting that quality of code at your onset, that's something we can do in our prompting and our descriptions that AI Impact actually creates. Now, that is the story creation, a very quick overview of that. And again, I'll be around sort of all evening this evening. So if you did want to come over and test something, feel free to pull me to the side and we can do so.
Today, I'm going to talk about GFT's Intelligent Banking Assistant. And as Alex said, this is something we have developed jointly with our partners in Google. And it's part of their IVN program, which is Industry Value Networks, which aims to bring together the best-in-breed partners in a given industry to develop value-added assets and products within that industry. So before I start, I wanted to ask a question to the audience, and it's the first time I do it, so it might backfire, but who in here has ever used a virtual agent or chatbot for resolving any queries or problems with a product or service? Okay, 90-something%. Some of you who haven't, but probably it was a very good chatbot and you didn't realize it was a chatbot. So of those of you who had, who has actually found it very useful, that has helped them resolve the query in most cases generally? Okay, that's still quite a few, so it'd be good to hear about your experience a bit later on. But yeah, most people, and I do, find traditional AI chatbots quite annoying. So we've built the next generation of virtual assistant, which is our intelligent banking assistant, and we've leveraged generative AI, as you might have guessed already, and we use latest Google LLMs to provide a more conversational engagement and interaction with customers. And also, it's also personalized, so it's not just a generic knowledge base or a set of pre-canned answers. So it really looks into the products and services that the customer has with the bank, and it's connected real time with the banking systems to provide that real time and personalized interaction. And of course, this is a heavily regulated environment, and we need to implement some safeguards and controls to make sure both customers and the bank are protected at all times. So there are some obvious benefits of a solution like this, and the key one that comes to mind is the efficiency in customer operations and the potential reduction in operational costs, which is front of mind for many COOs and CIOs in the industry, and basically relieving customer service agents from the more routine tasks and being able to focus on more value-added activities, which will in turn result in an enhanced customer satisfaction. So we're all used now to use generative AI in our daily lives and in our work. So we will be expecting to be able to interact with our bank in a similar way. So why do I need to be looking in my app for what is the option to change this standing order when I can just ask an agent in a simple sentence?
We have a heap of different products in our portfolio. I'm going to be talking today purely about what we can do with AI, how we can secure it, because obviously with all these new technologies, all these new ways of doing things, there's going to be security issues or complications with them. So we've got a comprehensive set of products, and we're breaking them down into AI Access. We love our acronyms at Palo. So AI SPM, so I think most people probably have already heard what that is, but basically AI posture management, and then AI runtime as well. So I'm going to be talking through all three of these areas, and I'll break down where they're useful and why we need to look at all of them, not just some AI things in isolation. So firstly, we've got employees and users using GenAI applications, and we've got enterprises building AI applications like you've seen today. So you've got partners building them, you've got customers building them, you've got all sorts. So if we start with users themselves, let's give you some stats, like everyone loves to do. So 57% of all employees are using GenAI apps weekly. This could be anything from Gemini to ChatGPT, whatever it might be. Now, why is it important to focus on the user at a starting point? You really want to know, firstly, what visibility do IT teams have over what applications users are using? And that's really important. But why is that important? You want to know where your data is going, what data is being uploaded to these platforms. Is it being used maliciously? Are they taking sensitive data and sending it to platforms? And that's, these are the things that you want to get visibility over. You want to make sure no one is leaking data to an LLM platform that might be abused by something. So it's important to focus on the user. And a key part of this is really, it's not just about users in the workplace. Everyone's working remotely. They work from coffee shops and trains and maybe toilets and stuff, I don't know. But it doesn't really matter where. But you need to make sure that this data is secure. So we've used existing technologies at Palo to make sure that no matter where you're working from, whether you're on a corporate device, not a corporate device, that our technologies can combine and identify where your data is, what LLMs might be being used, what AI applications might be being used, so you can actually track what's going on there. So I know I'm going through the user bit a little bit quickly here, but I want to focus quite a bit on what we're doing in the enterprise play, because that's a big use case here. So let's go through that. And of course, there's some other areas here, like it might not just be data leakage. The responses coming back could have malicious URLs in them. There could be any sort of risks associated. So what you really want to know about is it safe? Who is using it, and why are they using it, and how can you control it? And that's what we're giving you with AI Access.
I thought today what I would do is I would give a little bit of a view on where we think we are in the AI journey now from the Google perspective. And one of the nice things about my role is I get to talk to lots of companies and help them solve some of their problems in this space. And so actually see what they're really doing rather than what's necessarily in their press releases. So I'm going to try and talk about what we're seeing customers actually doing, organizations actually doing, and then give you a little bit of a sense about what we think the future holds specifically for this year. Because one of the challenges I think in this space, I'm sure that everyone's found, is the rate at which this stuff is changing means it's quite hard to forecast what's going to be going on in 2 or 3 years' time, which is, I'm sure, very difficult when you're trying to get budgets for things. But so really focus on this year, what we're seeing changing, what's coming out now, and then hopefully get to some demos, all of which are effectively SaaS, and you can use them yourself. You can go home, play with them, upset and scare your family with how the stuff's developing so quickly. So I think the first thing I'd say is, here we've got a bit of a history of the stuff that Google's released over the last sort of 10 years. So what's special about this now? This isn't super new, really. Yeah, AI is not a new topic. It's been discussed for a long time. Transformers were invented by Google in 2016, so it's not actually, in some sense, that new. What's changed? I think one of the things just to think about when understanding why this is changing so rapidly, why people are so excited, and why it feels so transformational, is to think about fundamentally how people used to think about machine learning as a key piece of AI and how this is different. So in the past, if I had a problem I wanted to solve, like, for example, what animal has been digging up my veg beds in the garden, I would put out cameras, I would train a model to look for cats, which is what it is, and I'd ask one question, I'd go and get a load of data, train a model to answer that, deploy the model, and I'd get a result. Challenge of that is that one model only solves and answers one question, so it's expensive. Yeah, my investment cost to set that up is expensive. What's different about the large language models and transformers is because they are trained on such huge data sets, such mammoth data sets, they have very good ability to solve a large number of questions with a sort of general reasoning capability. So as a result, although it costs a lot of money for Google and others to train those large models, your marginal cost of using it is super low. Yeah, to actually answer questions, a new question is a very low cost of usage. And when marginal costs go down, utilization goes up. So whatever you might think about whether current use cases are going to be the end use cases, you might have some cynicism about the ways people are using it currently. As cost comes down, you will see this proliferate everywhere. And I think a really good example of that would be LEDs. So if you look around the room, you'll find LEDs everywhere. LEDs fundamentally brought down the marginal cost of light bulbs. And so you just see them everywhere, and that's why we're seeing this proliferate so much currently.
I think initially we saw how the technology is maturing, right? I think we saw with AI Impact an AI software productivity suite which is focused around the SDLC that FSIs, financial services institutions, use, and the problems and issues that actually drive performance in FSI SDLC operations. And those are, surprise, surprise, no doubt, those are not generating code, right? Everybody who's worked building software in FSIs knows you can write 1,000 lines of code in a day and nobody cares. It just isn't relevant. The question is, what can you get in front of users? And that requires that you go through a whole washing machine type process to actually deliver a function that can be written in half an hour or something. And that requires organization, stories, planning. There's project planning as well in AI Impact. And of course, huge amounts of validation. So I think the lens of the real business process has led to genuinely useful innovation there. In the banking agent, we saw how the challenges of integrating to a real core banking system as opposed to just notionally saying, okay, we could build this and having a few Python classes shape the kind of tool that you produce. So that real integration into a real operational capability, the demand of security, and the actual value cases for the users, again, have shaped that set of innovations and I think it is the result of the maturity of the last 24 months where we've been working with this technology.